Welcome to Africa This Morning. It is the 26th of March 2014. Let's start the bulletin with a look at the top stories.
Uganda boat accident. Over 107 people killed after overloaded boat capsizes. Mombasa attack victim. 1-year-old baby boy who was shot in the head airlifted to Nairobi. Kenya Wildlife Service on poaching. Officials respond to conservationist call to deem poaching a national disaster. Landslide in Seattle. 6 more bodies are discovered, bringing the death toll to 14, leaving 176 unaccounted for.
We start off in Uganda. According to rescue officials who recovered more bodies of drowned refugees in Lake Albert, over 107 people were reported to have died yesterday after a boat capsized in the lake along the border of Uganda and the Democratic Republic of Congo.
The boat, which was carrying mostly Congolese refugees, was overloaded. Police reports indicate that this is a common factor in similar tragedies in the East African country.
Reliable information which we got from refugees who said that there were about 250 in the boat. Now, if you do your math, you find that we have recovered close to 130 refugees, both who survived, 41 and 98 who we found the bodies. So there's a likelihood that there are more bodies which have not been recovered.
The Albert and Rift region of Uganda is home to thousands of Congolese refugees who have fled conflict in their home country over the years, particularly in Democratic Republic of Congo's eastern region, which has been plagued by violence involving various rebel groups. According to the rescue officials, there is need to communicate with the refugees to advise them when it is safe to return to their country and the best routes to use.
We have to enhance our information campaigns in the settlements. We have to do that. We have to tell the refugees when it's safe to return. We have to tell refugees which routes are best to follow. And, so that's a lesson learned. We are doing it, but maybe we need to be more vigorous in informing them, look, overloading of the boats and using routes which are not official.
Police say they estimate about 150 people were on the boat. Lake Albert is about 100 miles long. The boat began its journey at the northern end of the lake and was heading south to a landing site on the Ugandan shoreline before capsizing around mid-morning.
2 months to his first birthday, the baby boy who was shot in the head by gunmen during the terror attack at a church in Mombasa on Sunday has been airlifted to the Kenyatta National Hospital here in Nairobi for specialized treatment. Doctors say that Satrin Osinya has an open wound on the right side of his head, but his level of consciousness is stable. Ebru Africa's news reporter Agnes Gakunga with that story that has moved many across Kenya.
Some minutes past noon Tuesday, the AMREF flying doctors aircraft carrying 1-year-old Satrin Osinya, who has hit headlines in the Kenyan media after being shot by gunmen inside a Mombasa church, landed at the Wilson Airport. The boy was accompanied by his father and AMREF medical personnel.
The baby is conscious, it's awake, that is a very good sign. And the fact that the baby was not crying means that, the medication has also worked to help this baby to calm down.
The boy was later taken to the East Africa's largest referral hospital, where he will be given specialized treatment under the care of 3 neurosurgeons led by the head of neurosurgeons department at Kenyatta National Hospital, Dr. Gishuru Mwangi.
On the right side, the occipital area, there is an open wound that is oozing some fluid. And I think that is where the bullet went into. We don't have an exit wound on him, so the bullet is actually launched in his brain. The part of the brain that the bullet is lodged in is actually on the right occipital area. That's the area that serves vision. His motor function, mukono, muguu, they are all moving very well. Speech is quite good. Memory for him, he has no issue. But where the bullet is sitting is on the right, and that's the area that serves vision.
According to Dr. Mwangi, the bullet is stuck on the right side of his brain, the side that serves vision. But after examining him, his eyes are functioning well and even his limbs. But the surgery is complex and cannot take place immediately to reduce the risk of damaging his brain, considering that the wound is still fresh and dirty and needs to be cleaned well.
The brain is still swollen, so we're not going to remove the bullet today, no. We have to allow the wounds to clean and heal. And then from there, we'll have a session whereby we'll actually use CT scan, that's computer tomography, to plan and ascertain the exact location of the bullet. So when we're going in to remove the bullet, we'll go in without causing a lot of damage to the brain. Because if you go in right now to remove the bullet, yes, I'll get out the bullet, but I will leave the brain very, very much damaged. So I'll need time. We clean the wounds, then within a span of 1 to 2 weeks, we'll go in and have the bullet removed in a more elective and a more safe way for the child.
Kenya's Health Cabinet Secretary James Macharia has termed the boy as brave, considering the pain he's going through in his young age. He said the government will pay the hospital bill.
As a Minister of Health, we would like to make sure that the ones who remain in hospital are treated and they recover as soon as possible.
Baby Osinya's mother was killed during church attack on Sunday, shielding his son. At least 6 people were killed during the attack and more than 15 others seriously injured. Due to the complexity of the surgery, considering that the bullet is stuck on the baby's right side of the brain, the team of surgeons will give the wound at least a period of 1 to 2 weeks for the wound to stabilize before the surgery. Agnes Gakunga, Ebru Africa News, Kenyatta National Hospital, Nairobi.
We wish baby Satrin the best even as he awaits his surgery within the next 2 weeks. To West Africa, aid workers and health officials are working hard to contain West Africa's first outbreak of the deadly Ebola virus, as tests on suspected cases in Conakry confirmed fears that it had spread to the Guinean capital.
Scientists tackling an outbreak of Ebola in Guinea believe they have identified the virus as the Zaire strain, the most lethal of all that raises the already high level of concern. Lyon-based Institute pastor said preliminary sequencing of a portion of the virus is compatible with the Zaire species. Officials, however, say tests on the suspected cases of deadly Ebola virus in Guinea's capital Conakry are negative. At least 59 people have died after contracting a mystery illness in southeastern Guinea since early February. 6 cases have been confirmed as Ebola, as hemorrhagic fever with a fatality rate of as high as 90%. The government sent SMS messages to Guineans calling for calm and detailing precautions people could take against Ebola. Over the weekend, officials dispatched specialized medical equipment, imposed restrictions on funerals, and sought to contain panic to prevent Ebola from spreading.
The Health Ministry, in collaboration with its partners, has taken the following measures. All sick people are given free treatment in isolation centers. Information is given out to the population about hygiene measures to be implemented on an individual and collective level. The disposal of the bodies of the people who have died will be exclusively handled by the Guinea Red Cross to limit any contamination.
Medical charity Medicines Sans Frontières said researchers are trying to find the source of the virus and understand how the Zaire strain reached Guinea from Sudan, Congo and Uganda, where there are frequent outbreaks.
And back to Kenya, the Kenya Wildlife Service has acquired a drone to help it in its fights against poaching. The service says the lack of enough manpower has been its main challenge in addressing the menace, which it termed as a national crisis. Miriam Kanyugo reports.
Poachers have over the years been changing their poaching methods. Some are using sophisticated weapons, while others are using silent methods that tend to be difficult for rangers to detect, prompting the Wildlife Service to change tact.
We are following with other agencies of government. You know, KWS, our mandate, of course, is conservation. We are brought into another national security organs to assist us in that one. And they are in an advanced stage, and something is going to be done. And I think there are others who are like the Chinese, other people who get to be those, they'll be caught by the way.
Environment has also contributed to poaching in a case witnessed in Lake Nakuru, where water levels rose, shrinking grazing land and forcing rhinos to move to the park's periphery, leaving them vulnerable to poachers. However, the Wildlife Service is calling upon the public to giving vital information that will assist in the fight against this crime.
All equipment, firearms, even drones and other things. We need more because of the sophistication. Because this is it's actually a very serious crime. It's actually fought after drugs and then human trafficking and arms. So it's a very serious crime. Wildlife crime now is ahead of that. Of course, in terms of resources, in terms of technology, in terms of human resources also, the two aspects, if we get that one, then it's okay.
The service is, however, quick to add that the poaching menace is currently at a crisis level and not yet a national disaster.
Well, I mean, we don't, the way we have been told, this is a global problem. And you are aware this has been a global problem is that we need to address. We have not reached that level because we are working as the world. It's not about Kenya alone. This crisis is not about Kenya alone. If there is a crisis, then it should be internationally declared.
Besides poaching, other challenges the wildlife face include human-wildlife conflict, conflicting land use practices, insufficient human and technological capacity. But with new stiff wildlife laws enacted this year, cases of poaching are expected to reduce significantly. So far, 249 suspects have since been prosecuted for various wildlife offences.
Still on Kenya, cases of fistula among women in the country have increased drastically, with 3,000 new cases being reported each year. Out of less than 50% are treated, with many poor women in rural Kenya being unable to access important information on maternal health care. Ebru Africa's news reporter Agnes Gakunga with a story about how many women are suffering in silence with this condition that was until recently one of the most ignored conditions in Africa.
There is a very thin line between the joy of motherhood and childbirth complications such as fistula, a condition brought about by obstructed labor. Although it is both preventable and treatable, fistula plagues the lives of thousands of women in Kenya every year. Miriam Lukaziva knows too well the pain of living with fistula. She has been carrying the burden for 23 years. It has been a painful journey, she says, one that she never thought could find cure.
I thought that when a woman gives birth, that's how their life changes. I had no right information and I continued to suffer.
The 52-year-old mother of 3 visited various hospitals, even though her condition restricted her movement, her diet, and even the kind of chores she could perform. She was forced to use napkins, at least to hold her leaking urine. Her self-esteem was low, and like the case of many women suffering from the same condition, she never had the courage of sharing what was bothering her.
I used to pretend to be strong, but most of the time I was lonely. I used to see myself totally different from the rest. I was never free at all.
Next to her in this hospital bed is Jacinta Ongoro. Though not her real name for the sake of this broadcast, Ongoro's life took a drastic turn in May 2011 when she went for the antenatal clinic and the doctor informed her that she would have a stillbirth. The worst happened when the nurse who attended to her pulled the baby with no much care and caused her a terrible tear. A tear that made her not be able to hold her stool since then.
I visited a normal hospital, but I think the nurse who attended to me had no experience because my problem started after she pulled my baby.
But the 30-year-old is on her way to recovery after undergoing surgery. It has not been easy though, considering she is a young single mother with a 6-year-old child to take care of. These 2 women have one thing in common. They represent at least 2 million other poor women in developing countries who are suffering in silence and who are being discriminated against by their close relatives and friends due to this condition.
First, when you have a problem, you must speak about it. It was not spoken about. Many people were shy to talk about it. You, as the person who has got fistula, it will take you a long time before you say what is wrong.
Many women, especially in Africa suffering from fistula, have become emotionally affected. The 34-year-old Jane Wamboi cannot hide her joy. She is completely healed after suffering for 5 years, thanks to the reconstructive surgery.
Oh, I cannot express my joy. Even when I'm walking, I feel I could tell everybody that I'm healed. I wish I knew that my condition was treatable. I could have healed a long time ago.
This problem is largely hidden because it often affects young women who live in poor, remote areas with very limited or no access to maternal health care. The story of women with leaking urine and stool that makes it difficult for them to do anything like going to the market or even attending social gatherings is one that is never told by many, but with many women suffering, especially in developing countries, is a story that must be told. Agnes Gakunga, Ebru, Africa News, Nairobi.
The civil society in Kenya is raising alarm on the critical processes endangering the success of devolution in the country. They are in particular concerned by the calls from various government quarters to cut down on the number of counties. Sam Gakunyi tells us more.
Expected to kick off and brighten up the state of affairs of a developing country was a devolved system of government, but it's turning out this baby is giving Kenya more problems, contrary to the solutions it was expected to bring on board.
1 year on after the general elections, the devolution process in Kenya is under threat. The civil society fears that devolution is on the verge of being killed, if not being crippled.
The body mandated to oversee Kenya transit to a devolved system of government is the Transition Authority. The civil society in Kenya is of the opinion that body has failed despite building up a considerable capacity over the last 18 months.
The transition process has not been completed. It has been very poorly handled. Part of this is because the Transition Authority was unable to execute its mandates, and now there's a big debate about, do you scrap this body? Who takes over the functions? Is it the Ministry of Devolution? Is it the Council of Governors?
Asking ourselves, are we participating as we should?
They also say that there was no proper civic education to inform Kenyans on what devolution is and its benefits. This is largely because the devolution process is presently taking place without a guiding devolution policy.
So national government has not done its part on civic education. So when citizens remain unaware of what they are supposed to do at the local level, it's because of non-performance at the national level.
The civil society is therefore proposing that the government immediately adopts a devolution policy developed by the task force on the devolved government. In their view, this will come in handy to save the otherwise stalled devolution process.
Transition, things will not move perfectly, and sometimes the reason for mistakes is because of transition hiccups. So you need to focus on the hiccups so they can be sorted out.
Recently, Kenya's escalating wage bill has prompted suggestions from various leaders that the number of counties be scaled down. This is to at least caution the country from a financial crisis.
Still in Kenya, a section of MPs has proposed an amendment to the Education Act seeking to compel the government to offer free and compulsory secondary school education, saying that the current provision is not holistic. The ODM party MPs want all students who sit for Class 8 exams absorbed into secondary schools. If successful, secondary education will become part of basic education, which is guaranteed by the Constitution.
The question one we want to ask is, unless you guarantee these children who graduate from primary schools chances in secondary school, of what benefit would the KCP certificate be to them? If you could ask again, for instance, what is the difference between a Class 8 graduate and, for instance, a Class 4 dropout? The answer is none.
It should be mandatory for every child to be able to go to Form 1. And maybe we can also review the way we handle our examinations in Kenya.
And finally, authorities in the United States of Washington have found 6 more bodies after Saturday's huge landslide, bringing the number of casualties to 14. Officials now say as many as 176 people may remain unaccounted for after the wall of mud hit the town of Ooro, north of Seattle. Search crews have worked day and night using helicopters and laser imaging as they try to find survivors. With the help of family members and volunteers who are using chainsaws and their bare hands to shift the wreckage and trying to find those who are missing. Although authorities no longer expect to find any survivors in the debris. Snohomish County Emergency Management Chief John Pennington said he did not think the final death toll would be so high because some of those listed as unaccounted for would be found alive and other names would prove to be duplicates.
To date, there are 108 reports of names of individuals who are either unaccounted for or missing. I want to stop at that point and clarify that these are 108 reports.
President Barack Obama has declared an emergency in Washington state and ordered federal authorities to coordinate the disaster relief efforts. That brings us to the end of the Bulletin on Africa this morning. Join us next as we take a look at other leading stories on our social media platform segment on Trend.